In 2003, a new book came out. It was called The New Rabbi. I read it with great interest. It was by a journalist named Stephen Fried, and in his journeys through the process of choosing a new rabbi for his own congregation, he found this description of what some consider to be the ideal rabbi. Someone who attends every meeting and is at his desk working until midnight. Someone who is 28 years old, but has preached for 30 years. Someone who has a burning desire to work with teenagers, but spends all his time with senior citizens. Basically, someone who does everything well and will stay with the congregation forever. Well, I am definitely no longer 28 years old. I imagine you'll see that from the pictures in the slideshow in a few minutes. We have definitely aged together over these past 15 years. I also think in many ways we've grown together over that time. Sort of like two vines with separate roots, but over time they intertwine and intertwine again and again as the shoots reach upward, as the leaves spread, as the plant grows, it grows together with the other one. So too, I think for myself and for Kol Hadash, we've grown together in that time, in these 15 years. After all, aside from personal friends and my wife, Kol Hadash has been my longest chosen relationship. Now, like every relationship, there are both challenges and rewards to that process. Originally, before we shifted a little bit the focus of tonight's celebration, I was going to give you a backstage pass into my life as a rabbi. Now I'm down to 15 minutes, so I'm not going to overdo it. But I want to share with you two of the challenges and two of the rewards that I found from serving as the rabbi at Kol Hadash. One of the first challenges that I've encountered and addressed and tried to surmount is the challenge of social engineering. I sometimes joke that my work as a rabbi would be easier if it weren't for all the people. Of course, it would also be a lot less interesting. An important part of my job is presenting a public face for the congregation, offering a compelling message and convincing people that we can be a meaningful connection in their lives. But behind the scenes, I also have to find the right and the gentle way to socially engineer. I recruit volunteers, and occasionally I have to redirect volunteers if their efforts could be more effective elsewhere. And Kol Hadash is a volunteering congregation. When I first came to the congregation, I was told that they even had a special committee for setting up the sukkah for the fall celebration. They called it the Sukkah Erection Committee, or for short, simply the Erection Committee. I found that amusing, and I said, well, it sounds to me like you've got a committee for everything here. But we have to manage volunteers as lay leadership and as the rabbi too. That's part of social engineering. I have to find the right way and the gentle way to offer constructive feedback and correction and encouragement, again, without stepping on too many toes or hurting too many feelings. I have to find ways to celebrate some members for their hard work and their generosity without alienating other members at the same time. I have to manage issues between members, even sometimes conflicts between members. I have to manage them between members and staff, even sometimes between members and myself or staff and myself. And if you haven't heard of any conflicts between members or between members and staff, wonderful. That means we've done our job. I am the universal complaint desk, the ombudsman, the conflict resolution counselor, the cheerleader, the pep talker, the brainstormer, the organizer, and the executor. I found that setting up chairs for a service is very easy. Managing the people who sit in those chairs is a little bit harder. A second challenge that I've dealt with is the need to be all in. You may know from watching poker on television, since there's nothing else to watch in sports, the concept of being all in, taking all your chips and putting them all on the table on one hand. When I began my studies to become a rabbi and when I began my career, I considered the profession as mostly an intellectual project. Sermons were like lectures, classes were didactic. I had a lot of information, or I could learn information and then I should pass on information. It was educational, it was intellectual. And at some point, I read an essay by a rabbi originally from Denver named Dan Cohen-Sherbach, where he described two kinds of rabbis, dog rabbis and cat rabbis. Dog rabbis are the social butterflies. They run up and greet everybody and they make social connections. And cat rabbis are a little more private and a little more intellectual, and they'll do their public presentations, but they'll also want their alone time. If you think about dogs and cats' personalities, it actually makes a lot of sense. And you've probably known both dog rabbis and cat rabbis in your career. What I had to learn over the course of the last 15 years is that really you need to try to be both. You need to have aspects of the dog rabbi, be social, be outgoing, be open, and also have the cat rabbi. And if one comes naturally to you, then you have to grow into the other. The rabbinate is not just ideas and information. It's also lived experience. It's emotional bonds. It's humor and it's inspiration and it's excitement and it's affection. Leading a bar mitzvah or a baby naming for a family, I've also helped through a funeral or a wedding in years past, is uniquely joyful and wonderful for me. And for me, not only for them. After 15 years with Kol Hadash, I found that even reading yahrzeit names on Shabbat means more, because now many of those names were people I knew. And certainly the families are people I know even better than before. I myself have been shared and supported through my own life transitions, from the arrival of my children to the death of my father the day before Rosh Hashanah just a few years ago. Being all in means that your connections are deeper, they're harder to manage, but they're also more moving. It means that we have a relationship beyond just rabbi and congregant. It's a strong friendship. It's even a kind of family. My job is not only to educate, it's also to move, to inspire, to connect. I tend to be a private person, but I found that the more I share, the more I gain. The more I open up, the more others open up to me. And the more of my whole self that I bring to my work, the more my work contributes to the person I am and the person I want to be. And now the rewards. My number one reward is that I love what I do. When I first explored becoming a rabbi in the early 1990s, I was shocked to realize it was 27 years ago I started this journey. I knew that I could handle the public speaking and the writing. Along the way, I found that I didn't mind the less glamorous parts of the job, the committee meetings, the organization, the event planning, the budgets. What I never expected was how much I would enjoy what I get to do, to meet with families and help them celebrate the most important moments in their lives, to help create and sustain community for the cycles of the seasons in the Jewish calendar, and to educate youth and to connect with our cultural heritage and our personal beliefs and values. And I get to explore the ideas and events and issues that I want, and I actually have other people interested in hearing what I have to say about them, even after 15 years. Now, the downside to people paying attention and still paying attention is that I'm not allowed to recycle my jokes and stories too often. My first 2 years at Kol Hadash was fantastic because I had a whole 3 years worth of sermons I could reuse for a new audience. Can't do that anymore. Plus, I have the challenge that David Hirsch attends almost everything and remembers almost everything. In the end, the reward of our continued engagement and your continued trust in me and interest in what I have to say is very much worth it. And finally, the last reward I want to share with you is that what we are doing together is important now more than ever. Kol Hadash has never been a building or a library or a sign or office space. We have always been the people, in person or now at a safe distance. The Hebrew for synagogue is Beit Knesset, house of meeting. It's not a Beit El, a house of God, or a Beit Mikdash, a house of holiness. Those were words used for the Jerusalem temple that burned down 2,000 years ago. Knesset is encountering people on the human level. For now, we have Knesset, the meeting, without the Beit, without the physical space. We're in our own batim, we're in our own houses for our safety and for the safety of our friends and neighbors. But we are not alone. As I've been saying, we are alone together. And in these times, loneliness and isolation are also viruses, but these we know how to fight. I know that my work is important when I help a family say goodbye to a loved one, or when I see deep smiles and nods after a meaningful high holidays experience. And I know that I cannot do this alone. We are partners, you and I, who respond together to help each other, to do good in the world, to experience joy, to seek meaning and purpose, to grow together. This landmark of our first 15 years is not really a tribute to me. It's a tribute to all of us for doing the hard work of community building and relationship maintenance that makes Kol Hadash possible. As I wrote to you recently, without you, we would not be. And so thank you for 15 wonderful years, for the opportunity and the privilege to be a part of your lives. And thank you in advance for many years to come.